All right, you're all welcome to the first international webinar for English language teachers, conducted and hosted by the Academic Department of the International English Language Teachers Association, Ghana chapter, on the 22nd of January, 2022. This is the International English Language Teachers Association. And then we have, as part of our vision statements, and then our mission statement. I'm going to read for the sake of those who are now joining us. And then I understand there are some participants who are not members of IELTA. So I'm going to read out the vision statement and the mission statement so that they will know what we are up to. All right. So the International English Language Teachers Association is a non-profit international organization with a multinational community of volunteers with an aim to improve and give assistance to teachers of English around the world. And IELTA Ghana chapter is an affiliate of the International Association. Our vision is to be a model of reference of innovative, academic, and organizational quality, which contributes to the educational improvements by creating a community of professionals in every country who are able to build dynamic and supportive learning environments and ultimately a better world. Now to our mission statement. IELTA aims to provide high-quality international standard programs to English language teachers, researchers, and learners around the world in order to enhance their human, professional, and scientific skills through a respectful, collaborative, cooperative, critical, and intercultural interaction. In view of that, we have organized our first international webinar. IELTA Ghana was launched on the 19th of December, 2021. And that is our first international program for English language teachers. I want to thank you all for making time out of your busy schedules to be with us here. Without taking so much of your time, we would go straight to the next activity on our list here. Hello, Madam Veronica, are you with us? Hello. All right, we have here with us our speaker, Mr. Alfred Quaittoo, and I would like to introduce our speaker to us so that we can go right into the session. He teaches English language at the Carnegie Senior High Technical School. He is a certified master trainer and curriculum developer. He has trained hundreds of trainers at the national, regional, and district levels. He also assisted in the development of instructional resources, such as teacher guides, activity books, decodable texts, and syllabus. Mr. Alfred Quaittoo is also an evaluation and monitoring expert in education. He has monitored and evaluated the implementation of key educational policies in various municipalities and districts. Mr. Alfred is currently the Deputy Director of the Academic Department, IELTA Ghana chapter. So without wasting much time, I would like to hand over to Mr. Alfred so that he can take us through this wonderful session. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you all those who have joined us online. This is our first meeting. This is our first webinar, and it's being hosted by IELTA Ghana. It's a privilege for me to be hosting this first meeting. I want to share my slides, share my page. Okay. As the president rightly said, my name is Alfred Quaittoo. I've been involved in the teaching of English language in Ghana, and I've been training teachers and students on the best practices of the English language. This afternoon, I'll be taking you through creative writing, the lost arts. Creative writing is very, very important. We use writing in our everyday expressions, especially when we are writing to friends, to loved ones, when we are writing for pleasure, when we are writing with emotions. So today, that is just what we are going to be looking at. We are going to be looking at the best practices. We are going to be looking at issues with regards to creativity when it comes to writing, how to best, how to get the best from our learners and from ourselves as educators. Without much ado, I will go straight to the content. Yes. I have something here. Yes. Writing is very important. Writing is used less due to the developing modern technologies these days because of phones, because of communication gadgets. Writing is less used. Formerly, when we had limited technology in terms of the various applications, you wrote a lot of letters, sent memos by writing, and also communicated across continent using writing as a means of communication. Despite the fact that English is taught as a second language, and the fact that English is compulsory across second language countries, that is why they use English as a second language. Students in school still face difficulty in expressing themselves in English, so to say. It is necessary to emphasize that writing is a skill. And so if you say, if you all agree that writing is a skill, then it should not be forgotten, but we should improve our skill when it comes to writing. And learning to write effectively is a fundamental component of education. Once you're educated, there is the expectation that you should be able to write and express yourself, express the feelings of others, and to be able to contribute to society. Yes. Okay. Now let's look at creative writing. What does it mean? Creative writing is an original writing that expresses ideas and thoughts in an imaginative way. Creativity has to do with the power of your imagination. Creativity has to do with the way you express yourself, even when you have not had a feel of what you are talking about. It basically has to do with imagining and going around the world with your mind. And so that is what creative writing is. Now, creative writing deals with fictional writing or storytelling. It has a major part to play. All fictional writing are creative writing, and so is storytelling. Creative writing is any writing that goes beyond the boundaries of normal profession, like journalism, academic writing, or any form of literature that is technical. Creative writing has to be developed in the way that the narrative is crafty, and also there is character development. that relies on literary devices. Now, writing is done in a way that is not academic or technical, but still attracts some audience. That is, when we say creative writing, we say anything that is done in terms of writing that is not academic or technical and causes audience to love it, to like it, and to find some association with it. It has a lot of genres and styles, and the range, as I said earlier, ranges from both fictional and non-fictional. Playwright, poetry, prose, and so many others forms part of the creative writing. Now let's look at some literature review on creative writing. These are experts who researched into creative writing and came out with some definition and explanation as to what it is and how we should look at it. Dawson in 2007 stated that creative writing means imaginative writing, writing as an art. And he goes on to say that it has nothing to do with information or the more routine forms of communication, though it uses many of their skills. So basically, Dawson looked at creative writing as an art, and that art should involve some imaginative skills. Now, Minor in 2010, that was cited in the Goshen 2019, defined creative art as a way of writing for writers to communicate their thoughts and feelings creatively in their own way. So he looked at communicating your thoughts and feelings in the creative way. That's for Manso. Now, the Remes in 1983 looked at writing as a form of communication that is full of ideas. It goes ahead to say that those ideas must be clear. It must be fluently expressed. It must be effectively expressed. And the transfer of emotions, thoughts, and wishes, as well as dreams, come together as a symbol in a way that will carry an effective communication in accordance with the grammar rules. So basically, he looked at writing as a communication of ideas clearly, fluently, and effectively, and the transfer of emotions, thoughts, wishes, and dreams by using symbols in a way that is in accordance with grammar rules. So basically, all the literature that scholars and experts wrote about creative writing has to do with using the imaginative wits and powers to come out with thoughts and feelings that is from within. Creative writing is about being original and imaginative rather than having correct thoughts. And it's the ability of using language, but not transferring knowledge. So here, Agdal and Shahin in 2014 looked at creative writing as carrying the imaginative rather than just the thoughts of having things in your mind, having pictures, having imageries, but being able to imagine what is not seen and being able to communicate that. Okay, now let's look at some forms of creative writing. One popular form of creative writing is poetry. Poems are very, very important. They convey meaning, they convey feelings, they convey sentiments. Poems mostly talks about the, the, the culture of the people, the issues pertaining to society, and how society views some of these things. And these things are expressed in poems using creative writing. Plays, as we all know, also is a form of creative writing. Plays, we can talk about drama. All the drama series that we watch on our television these days are all part of plays. The ones we read in literature, in our books, also forms part of a play. And these plays are creatively written. Yes, I spoke about movie and television script. Yes. Now, fiction. Novels are very, very important. Short stories are very, very important. All these short stories come about because of creativity. These stories are imaginative words that writers compose or put together in order to bring an effective communication of their feelings and their thoughts. We know of songs. Songs are lyrics, and lyrics are another form of poetry. And this form of poetry brings some excitement, some joy, sometimes some emotions out of the songs that we listen to. These are creative writings that result also out of creative imagination. Speeches. We have read so many speeches by world leaders across the globe. And most of these world leaders wrote their speeches creatively. And to date, we still quote some of these people as having written great speeches that have lived with us. In Ghana, we can talk about our first president, Kwame Nkrumah, whose speeches are still played in the streets of Accra. So all these are forms of creative writings. Now let's look at what is not creative writing. What other forms can we say are not creative writing? Forms of writing that are not considered creative writing. Academic writing, research writing, for example, is not considered as a creative writing. Journalism is basically presenting facts, figures, and authenticating and backing it with evidence. Technical writing obviously has to do with more of engineering, measurement, precision, textbooks, knowledge acquisition. So these forms of writing do not fall within the domains of creative writing. Now, what is the purpose of creative writing? Why would one write a piece of work and describe that as creative writing? Is this important? Let's look at its purpose. Creative writing is to both entertain readers and listeners. So one of the purposes of creative writing is to entertain. Of course, creativity and imagination must bring out some form of entertainment, and that is what it does. Yes, again, we are able to interpret skills through creative writing. The sharing of human experience like love, loss, grief, passion, sorrow, also is one of the purposes for creative writing. Currently, if anybody in Ghana who is a football fan chooses to write anything on football, obviously it will be the sad exit of the Ghana Black Stars from the African Championship that is being played in Cameroon. So that person will be doing a creative writing based on the loss or the heads of Ghana going out of the competition. Now, another thing that creative writing does is to empower writers to do critical thinking. Nobody engages in imagination without doing critical thinking. It's a mind activity that involves the use of all the intellectual ability, and so creative writing empowers one to do critical thinking. Generally, the purpose of creative writing is to produce something which is entertaining, engaging, and even personal. Yes. Writers have used personal experience to communicate so many things, which have won them award and recognition across the globe. And that's the purpose of creative writing. Now, let's look at the benefit of creative writing. How does it help the writer? What does it do to the writer? It helps the writer to have an improved self-expression. Once you are able to express yourself in your writing, there is subconsciousness in you that turns you into a good communicator. So in that regard, we say creative writing, because subconsciously turns you into a more effective communicator, because you're able to communicate your feelings and your thoughts to the admiration of the public or the readers or listeners. Now, as I said earlier, creative writing is a good writing that yields critical thinking. It improves your thinking, it improves your analysis, it improves your way of looking at things from different angles. Another benefit of creative writing is empathy. When we read and write stories, we situate ourselves in the shoes of other people. When we read and write poetry, we let the language navigate us through emotions. So anytime we are doing creative writing, we are putting ourselves in the shoes and in the comfort or discomfort of the characters in that writing. If anybody chooses to write on let's say an adventure, the person would, even though may not have experienced any adventure, would put himself or herself in that realm and be able to communicate that feeling. And so it brings out this empathy from writers, on the part of writers. Now it's fun. Whoever engages in creative writing engages in fun, and it pleases the soul that you are writing something that you know would bring some enlightenment into your spirit. You are creating new words, new characters. You choose to control whatever you want to say, and you invest your whole self into it. It becomes a craft, and it comes out as so beautiful. Now let's look at what teachers should know about writing. As teachers, what should we know about writing? We must recognize the fact that writing requires a lot of regular practice to be perfect at something, to be good at something, you need to always practice it. You need to be always to be doing hands-on to gather the experience and exposure that would bring out that creativity. So teachers need to accept the fact that writing requires a lot of practice, and so they should engage their learners and their students in a lot of writing activities. Writing is a skill that develops later. Sometimes it's very hard, sometimes slower in some other people. It's slower, harder than speaking and listening, and even sometimes in reading skills. That is what Albertson and Billisley said in 2000 and in 2014. So they said that writing develops harder and slower than that of speaking and listening and reading, and which is true. There are so many of us who are able to express ourselves very well in a particular language, but when it comes to writing, very deficient in that same language. So we need as teachers to recognize that. Once we recognize that, we'll be able to help our learners and our students to overcome that. Then writing is an activity that students are tired of. And definitely once they are tired of it, students easily get tired of it, becomes difficult. And they feel reluctant about it. So teachers should also know that if we ask learners, if we ask a student to write, especially when the student has not developed the skill and does not enjoy as they should, they will feel more reluctant, and in so doing, it becomes difficult. Okay. All right. Now, Brennan and Hunt in the year 2000 stated that students might develop negative attitude towards writing, and as a result, acquire unproductive writing habits, since writing is regarded as a complex activity, and students generally have discouraging experience with writing. That's true. Students at the basic level would generally not have an appetite for writing. It depends on how we as teachers will handle that, how we introduce them to writing, how we encourage them to write. And above all, teachers should know that it's great to write. I mean, intellectually it's great. Feeling wise is great. When you write, you express yourself the more, you communicate the more, you feel confident of yourself, and it's good. Okay, now let's look at some techniques in writing. Let's look at some techniques used in creative writing. To make students' writing stand out, writers often employ several writing creative techniques and literary devices that includes character development. Now, as teachers, as educators, we must take our learners and our students through character development. This is where the processing of or creating of well-rounded characters is done. Now, teachers should encourage the learners and students to create characters that would stand the test of time, where they don't write at a certain point in time and become discouraged in their writing. They should Yes, you have time, give it some time, think about it. That's why it's creative writing, imaginative writing. Think about it before developing the character. Very, very important. The plots should be developed as well, and it should be uh, uh, developed in such a way that how it develops, unfolds, and moves along in time. If the plot at certain point in the writing would end, then the creativity and imaginative aspect of the writing has not been exhaustively been tapped into. So the plot, development of the plot is very, very important. So teachers must also look at that. Now, the point of view when it comes to writing is a perspective from which a narrative is told. Here I would say the narrative point of view, whether it's a first person narrative point of view or a third person. We could go ahead to look at being omniscient, being other sort of narrative techniques used. Now, students who are learning how to write could start from the first point of view of narration, where they write things about themselves, things around them, things that they say, things that other people say to them. Then they graduate and move on. Yes. So the perspective from which a narrative is told, it indicates who is telling the story and how the information is conveyed to the reader. Quite often, readers, writers will play with the point of view of the central character or the protagonist to trick the reader and twist the perspective. So most of the time, the narrative should be centered well, so that at a particular point in time, the readers would want to know who the main character of the writer is. Yes. Now, the use of dialogue should be encouraged. The use of dialogue is very, very important. In play, in drama, there must be dialogue. And in taking students through, learners through writing, you must encourage them to build up characters that will speak and exchange conversations in their write-up. In doing so, the readers get to know exactly what the characters are saying, thinking, and doing at any particular point in time. So dialogue is very, very important. Now, the use of literary device, such as metaphors, similes, alliteration, to make creative writing more imaginative and descriptive, should also be used. Now, this issue of literary device is very, very important. As writers develop this technique, this would create the suspense and the interest in the readers to read more, because every sentence, every expression will have some of these literary devices being used, and once it's embedded in there, it creates the suspense for the writer to read on and to see what happens, especially when there is a play on words, and that creativity comes out of the writing. Okay, now let's look at how to improve creative writing skills. How do we get our students, how do we as individuals improve on our creative writing skills? As I said earlier, creative writing is a skill. And so to improve upon it, we need to read. We need to be addicted readers, so to say. We need to have that passion for reading. Once you read, it opens up your mind, your horizon to look at other writers' style of reading. So we should encourage ourselves and our learners to read wide. Read anything you find around your house, old books, papers, newspapers, anything you come across. Even inscription on cars, inscription on buildings, signages, flyers, posters. They all contain information that we could tap into when we need to do so. Find inspiration in everyday things. Write about things that are around you. Write about anything that you see, that you smell, that you see, you feel. Anything that causes you to ask why. Why not? What happens? What if? Yes. So we should find inspiration in everyday things around us, and that will cause us to write and to be creative about whatever we write. We could also use writing prompts to inspire ourselves. We could use writing prompts. There are so many of them online. There are so many of them in magazines, in flyers, newspapers that we could use to inspire whatever we write. Any other words you find around could be used in creative writing. You should find that space to tap into that gray areas that are around us that we feel could be developed as part of creative writing. Another thing that we must also do is to also read other people's work of art. When I say work of art, because other scholars have defined it as work of art, these are imaginative writings, these are creative writings, these are fiction books, poetry, prose, novels, plays. We should read, and in our reading, we should try as much as possible to identify some flaws, and in doing so, see how best, if we had the opportunity or were in the shoes of the writer, how we would have improved upon it. Then that will guide us to also be creative writers. Let's keep a journal, a jotter, a book, any writing piece on us, wherever we find ourselves, so that we can jot things when we are in our trains, in our cars, in our bedrooms, when we are at the dining table. These are inspirations that come to us. These are thoughts that we do get day in, day out in the course of our activities. And so when we have these daughters, these books, these pens and pencils around, as soon as the idea drops in, then you make sure you note it down on a piece of paper. That helps to also improve our creative writing skills. Then we could as well play imaginative games. Games such as cops and robbers, or pretending to be a character from a favorite TV show. We could also try to imitate high-profile personalities in our society, and to see how we could dramatize those scenes and those speeches, those characters. In doing so, when we set off to write, when we are writing, we could incorporate all of these characters, all of these scenes, all of these imaginative games into it. But most of the movies that we watch these days are from imaginative and fiction writing. And so we can encourage ourselves to do that, encourage our learners to also do that. You could take a famous story and try to rewrite it in a way that brings out that creativity. You could take the story of Romeo and Juliet and see how different we could write it in terms of creativity, and to bring out that's different narrative aspect of our skill, and to see how it goes. So we can rewrite famous stories and see, give it to our friends, our colleagues, to also look at it and see how different it is from the original text. We could also use image as prompts. Image as prompt, photographs, paintings, picture in a magazine, whatever we come across that becomes an interest that intrigues us. We could also rely on it to write. By describing a painting that you love in 20 words, could say a lot about your creativity. By writing about a profile in a magazine, that could also bring out that creativity in you. Now, one of the ways that we could improve our creative writing skills is also incentivize our writing. When writing, try setting yourself some goals. For example, I aim to write 100 words a day, 100 words per a particular work of art that I want to do with regards to painting. So I could pick a painting and decide to write 100 words, 100 words of creative art, either in the form of a poem, a song, or whatever, by giving myself some goal in terms of the number of words. In doing so, that will propel you to be able to write beyond what you had planned to do. Now, connect with your interests. If you are a football lover, you could write a lot about Messi. If you're a fan of Messi, if you're a fan of Ronaldo, like I am, you could write a lot about Ronaldo, how he possessed the ball and how he's able to even score and be rated as the all-time best scorer in the world. Why not write about something of interest, something that causes you to smile, something that is of interest to you, something that intrigues you? Yes, so we can connect with our interest. Here, I want us to look at this example of creative writing. This is a poem. We know that poems provide great examples of creative writing. And we can say that, in fact, they are almost exclusively emotional and imaginative. No matter your experience with an incident, you need to still be emotional and creative about it when you are putting it into a poem, when you are writing it or writing that, bringing it out as a poem, you need to be creative. Now, this is an excerpt from Lewis Carroll's The Walrus and the Carpenter. This is an example of creative writing. Now, let's look at it. It's not based on facts, but it uses a lot of imagination. I read. If 7 maids with 7 mops swept it all for a half a year, do you suppose, the walrus said, that they could get it clear? Oh, sorry. Okay, let me take it again. If 7 maids with 7 mops swept it for half a year, do you suppose, the walrus said, that they could get it clear? Clear? I doubt it, said the carpenter, and shed a bitter tear. This is a 6-line poem that is talking about the experience between the carpenter and the maids. And we could start off with this. We could start off by engaging our learners to write something as short as this, something that is very simple, but very poetic, very creative, very imaginative. And in so doing, they'll be doing creative writing. Now, one other popular creative writing, form of creative writing, is short stories. And short stories can be narrative. It can be funny, mysterious, satirical, the fantasy aspect of it. It could also be historical. But whatever the storyline is, often stories do include some lessons for the reader or for the readers. And so we should also alert our students and our writers that whatever stories they come up with should have a lesson that they can learn from. Yes. Let's look at this excerpt from Margaret Barrington's Village Without Men. Village Without Men. And it's from the glass shore, an analogy that uses creativity to evoke emotion. Weary and distraught, the women listened to the storm as it raged around the houses. The wind screamed and howled. It drove suddenly against the doors with heavy lashings. It tore at the straw ropes that anchored the thatched roofs to the ground. It rattled and shook the small windows, sent the rain in narrow streams under the door, through the piled up sacks to form large puddles on the hard stamped earthen floor. So from this short story, you could see that there is a lot of attempt to make it creative, a lot of imaginative skills in here. And it talks about this extract talks about the storm that almost carried everything away in terms of the building, the windows, and all that, the doors, all that. So this is an imaginative writing that uses a lot of imagery, a lot of symbols, a lot of devices, literary devices, and this is one of the many good writings we have as a source story. So, ladies and gentlemen, in some instances, we could also give our learners some prompts. Some prompts. That is where we see or find that our learners have challenges. Starting a story. Those are the very lower levels of teaching. We could give them a prompt. We could give them a prompt. Now, this is a prompt I copied elsewhere. You are sitting at your desk, staring. Let me take it again. You are sitting at your desk, staring blankly at the computer screen. Just then, a piece of paper floats down and lands in front of you. It says, "Tomorrow will be your last day." Once you give your learners this, or you give yourself this prompt, it should be able to give you some push to be able to continue to write an interesting story. Sometimes the urge to start writing is a challenge. But once you have an imaginative piece, a creative piece, you could go ahead, carry on and write that. And so I think that some prompts, some promptings for learners is very, very important, and we should encourage that. Okay, here's another one. She entered her parents' home to clear out her possessions. What was she going to do with all their belongings? When she got to the safe, she keyed in the code. It opened up and saw the most disturbing picture inside. This is also a good opening, a good prompt that would encourage or urge somebody on to go ahead and to do creative writing. I have the last one here. She wrestled into the ring to call up her dragon. When he arrived, she hopped up on the balcony railings, saddled her ride, and set sail for. So you can see that 3 dots there, 3 ellipses. There's ellipses there to for the writer to continue. And these are just a sample promptings. There are so many of them that we could do creatively to prompt our learners, our students, on how to write creatively. Ladies and gentlemen, as I end my presentation, I want to say that creative writing is an expressive form of literature, one which demands you to use your creativity, imagination, and story to portray a particular message, emotion, or plot. It defies the traditional bonds of other forms of writing, and it is completely subjective to your own preferences and experience. So I think that's all I have for now. I don't know. My president, are you there?
Hello, Mr. Alfred.
Yes, Beneza.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. So I don't know. Are we going to take questions?
Yes, we are going to take questions.
Okay. Okay, so I hand over to you. The questions and the other contributions, yes.
All right, I'll do that. Thank you. Thank you for the wonderful presentation you've given to us on creative writing. It's been a very great time. I'm going to take some of the questions from Facebook, and then I'll get other ones from the chat box if they are available. Let me share my screen. All right, so we're having the open forum. If you have any question, you can ask. You can type your questions in the chat box and then we'll read them out. I have one from Facebook. The person is asking, he says, please, in creative writing, what about portfolio and how do I write a portfolio of my work, whether it's a poem, short story, or an essay or a prose? Mr. Alfred? Hello, Mr. Alfred.
Hello, Beneza.
Yes, there's a question on our Facebook page. I want to read it again. It says, in creative writing, what about portfolio and how do I write a portfolio of my work, whether it's a poem, short story, or an essay, or a prose? So that's the question from one of the participants.
Okay, thank you. I know portfolios to be records of some academic work or some achievements. So in this sense, I don't know if she has, is it he or she, whether he or she has a collection of writings that she will want to gather and to be able to give it a title for as a collection of either poems or stories or whatever. But I know portfolios has to do with a collection of some happenings, either in the form of either creative writing or academic writing or whatever the genre of the writing is. But if all that she has happens to be creative writings, then she could say that she has a portfolio of creative writing. And so it will depend on her whether she will publish that or keep that for future references, where she'll be releasing one after the other for us. And she could even share one with us if she's okay with that. Yes. I think other experts could also respond to that question.
There's another question here from one of our participants from Philippines. He's asking, what rubric can you suggest in evaluating creative writing?
That's a tough question. Rubrics. I cannot suggest right now what rubrics I will I will prescribe for creative writing. But what I can say is that creative writing should be of your imaginations, your creativity. It shouldn't always be real, but it should be devoid of other delegatory statement or remark that will go against some persons or group of persons. But to say that I have a marking scheme, so to say, for creative writing, I don't have such for now. But there are ways of looking at it. There are ways of making sure that it is of imagination. It creates fun. People love it. It meets your creativity, and it shouldn't be just be factual. Now, when the rubrics come in, we may be tempted to say that there is the need to have some things in there, but in creative writing, what you need most is your imaginative powers. What you need is your skill. What you need is your writing creativity. Once you have that, you are at liberty to pick any genre, any form of writing, and make it your own. Just be okay with it. Yes.
Yeah, someone is asking from Solomon Joby is asking, is creative writing a lost art? Okay, I think that's his question. Is creative writing a lost art? And then I saw one of the questions here from Asunke Kwajo Albert. He's asking, please, can we say that the prompt is the starter of the creative writing process?
Okay, let me start with the earlier question. The issue is that it's a title of a research piece. We are not saying that we have totally lost creative writing. We are asking the question that is it lost? If it is there, what are we doing about it? So there is that need to reawaken ourselves when it comes to creative writing. So that is just what we have tried doing with this presentation. But of course, this presentation is not exhaustive. There are so many ways of looking at creative writing that any of us as members, as teachers, as lecturers could also come out with. And so the door is open for whoever has an input in this. The next one is whether, what's the next question?
The next question, I'm coming. He's asking from Asunke Kwajo Albert. He is asking, please, can we say that the prompt is the starter of the creative writing process?
Yes, these are starters, so to say. So he's right if he refers to the prompt as starters. These are starters that would urge whoever wants to write or want to continue the piece of creative writing to continue to do that. As I said, this is not exhaustive. This is just 3 samples. We could have more, or even more creative than what I have presented. So these are starters. They are meant to propel and to push writers to move on or to continue with the starters.
Okay, whilst we are asking the questions, I would like to inform our participants that an attendance sheet, the link to the attendance sheet has been shared in the chat box, as well as on our Facebook page. Kindly fill out the form for your certificate of participation. The form will be closed maybe 30 minutes or barely an hour Yes, probably an hour after the session. So kindly fill out the form. All right. If you have any other question, kindly post it on our Facebook page or in the chat box in Zoom, and we will attend to you.
I think somebody has made a comment here. Brenda.
Yes, Brenda.
Yes,
The
Brenda says
IELTA
that.
ambassador in Mauritius.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think she's contributing to the discussion. She says, in the class situation, give them one prompt, then place them in small groups and ask them to write a prompt. Then each group reads their prompt to the class. Then they share the prompt in the group. They write, they share the prompt in the group, and in the group, they write the story of the other group's prompt. So that is her contribution to it. We are grateful, Brenda, for that good suggestion, good input. We are grateful. Somebody, Adam Issa, says classifying journalism as a form that is not part of creative writing is not properly understood because we have different forms of journalism. To me, Manasseh sometimes employ creative writing in some of his journalism work. Yeah, Adam is true. Manasseh employs that creativity in his work, but he doesn't do that without the facts. And he's good at what he does in terms of his journalistic work. But the fact is that he plays, or he's creative with the facts. And what you're saying is that creative writing is not necessarily factual. It's not necessarily factual. But Manasseh would use the facts to use words. He will use words to bring out the fact, but playing with the fact. That's what I think he does. If you say his style of journalism is different, I accept. I know, I agree to that. But any work of journalism would involve some facts, some backings, something that he can always lay hands on and to say that these are my evidence, this is my evidence. Yeah, so that's how I'll look at that. Yes, there's another concern that says that journalistic writing cannot be classified as creative writing. I think I've commented on that.
There's another one coming from Moses. He's asking, what is the place of inspiration in creative writing as proposed by Wordsworth? Can CW be purposive as well?
Okay.
What is the place of inspiration in creative writing as proposed by Wordsworth?
Okay. I have to get that one. What is the place of inspiration in creative writing as proposed by Wordsworth? Can creative writing be purposive as well? Well, purposive. Yes, it can be purposive. That is, you have a target. You have an aim for writing that thing. I would say that satires, which sometimes involve some form of purposeful attack on society uses a lot of creative writing, or it's creative writing, but it has this purposefulness of attacking the ills of society. So in that regard, I would say yes. Creative writing can also be purposive as well. Yes, and it has a lot of inspiration. The issue of inspiration, I think in the presentation, there's an issue of inspiration where we draw inspiration from what we read and the things around us. That inspiration drives us to get to that level of imaginative thinking, and that leads to the imaginative writing. Because if you don't have inspiration in anything, you'll not be moved to respond to it in writing.
Okay, we have a comment coming from Jacob Manso. He's saying exactly. Journalism is supported with facts, the reason for which it is not regarded as creative writing. Yes. Inspiration is both creative and non-creative. It has an imaginative and realistic target or purpose. Yes, so that's the comment coming from. We also have one comment coming from Ms. Brenda. She's saying, but you can write about a problem in a creative way, even as a journalist.
Yes, okay. Yeah, that's what I said Manasseh is doing. Yes. And also satires. Satires are problems that we do write and that we do mock society with, and all those forms can do come under creative writing. But yes, journalism, because it's basically based on facts, you cannot solely describe journalism as creative writing. Somebody may be creative in presenting the fact, but the fact is not imaginative.
Okay, Solomon is asking once again, he says, can't a writer be creative in his or her writings that are factual?
Yes, you can. A writer can be creative in his or her writing. Let's take textbook for as an example. Textbooks are deliberately written in a particular way with a particular purpose. Now, in doing so, you need that level of creativity to be able to do that. But because the content of it is something that we regard as serious, factual, something that cannot be just taken for, let's say, for granted, we don't consider that as creative writing. In all the other forms of writing that we say are not creative writing, it isn't the fact that you are not expected to be creative about it. But the way you go about that creativity is different from the way you have written a story or a poem. Yeah, so that is my comments on that one. Thank you very much. I like the discussions coming up. It's an indication that
yes, I think those are the questions we have. For now, there is no new question, so let me just wait for some 10 seconds and see, maybe someone is typing a question. All right, I think we don't have any new questions. Dear participants, you are once again reminded to fill out the attendance sheet for your certificate. The link will be closed after the session. All right. Yeah, so we have congratulatory messages coming from Facebook and then Zoom. That a great presentation. Well done. Thank you. And congratulations on a very insightful discussion. Thank you so much, Mr. Alfred, for this wonderful presentation you've given to us as teachers of English language and creative writing. I believe it's going to go a long way to help us in becoming effective teachers and also becoming effective writers. Thank you so much for this presentation.
You're welcome, and I look forward to contributions as to how to make this presentation better so that we can all share. Thank you very much for your audience.
All right, you're welcome once again. Okay, we'll move to the next item. All right, so we have the presentation of certificates. That's the next thing we're going to. We have awarding of certificates. The first certificate here is a certificate of recognition proudly presented to Mr. Alfred Quaittoo for serving as the resource speaker during the first international webinar for English language teachers, conducted and hosted by the Academic Department of International English Language Teachers Association, Ghana chapter, on the topic Creative Writing, a Lost Art, given this 22nd day of January 2022 via Zoom. And this certificate is duly signed by the President of IELTA International, Dr. Neil Arbalo Alcantara. It's also signed by Ms. Fati Isifu, the Academic Director of IELTA Ghana, and then yours truly, Ebenezer, the Ambassador in Ghana. Thank you so much, Mr. Alfred.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for the certificate. Grateful.
We also have one certificate for our president, Dr. Neil Arbalo Alcantara, in recognition of your time, effort, and expertise contributed towards the successful organization of our first international webinar for English language teachers, given this 22nd day of January 2022 via Zoom. Thank you, Mr. Our president, Dr. Neil. And the third certificate goes to Madame Veronica Juma Sapon for serving as a facilitator during the first international webinar for English language teachers, conducted and hosted by the Academic Department of International English Language Teachers Association, Ghana chapter, on the topic Creative Writing, a Lost Art, given this 22nd day of January 2022 via Zoom. And it's also signed by Dr. Neil, Ms. Fati, and myself. Thank you. Now, the last certificate goes to our participants. For those who have filled out the attendance sheets, you will all be receiving your certificate of participation for your active participation during the first international webinar for English language teachers, conducted and hosted by the Academic Department of International English Language Teachers Association, Ghana chapter, on the topic Creative Writing, a Lost Art, given this 22nd day of January 2022 via Zoom. And it's we have the same signatories here. We have Dr. Neil, Ms. Fati Isifu, and myself. You receive signed certificates. You're going to receive signed certificates. Yes, so please fill out the attendance sheet before you leave the room. Fill out the attendance sheet. Let me check. All right, we have received 46 responses so far. Okay. We have received, oh, sorry, we have received 53. We have 53 now. Okay. Yeah, so I understand most of our participants are not members of the International English Language Teachers Association. Going through the data available, you're going to be, yes, you'll be directed to the various country ambassadors so that you can go ahead with membership application. We have participants from Albania, Bangladesh, Ghana, India, Lebanon, Mauritius, Mexico, Nigeria, Peru, Philippines, Romania, and UK. So yes, you are going to be directed to the various country ambassadors so that they can guide you through the membership application. All right. Yes, so before we go, shall we have a photo opportunity? Shall we take our photos before we leave? Okay. So let me stop sharing and then we'll take our photos. Kindly turn on your cameras. Yes, start your videos, turn on your cameras so that we can take our photo. All right. Okay, shall we? All right. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for attending our first international webinar for English language teachers. We are going to have series of webinars in February, March, and then April, after which we will have other ones. If you are not a member of the International English Language Teachers Association, kindly reach out to us and then we'll direct you to the right ambassador for you to get in touch and then work on membership application. Also, we've posted on our official Facebook page that if you want to start an IELTA branch in your country, kindly follow the due process, get an email address of our general secretary, and then forward your details, your CV to her, and then it will be evaluated, after which we'll get back to you. Thank you so much. Someone is asking a question. May I know what we should do if we want to share insights for upcoming webinars? All right, so in order to share insights, or maybe if you want to be a speaker on any of the webinars, kindly contact the ambassador in your country. Yes. First of all, you have to be a member of the International English Language Teachers Association. So kindly contact your ambassador and then he or she will take you through the right process. Thank you. Someone is saying he couldn't write his name on the attendance sheet. Wow. What happened? I'm sharing it once again. Kindly fill out the form before you leave. Fill out the form before you leave. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We will stop our live streaming. Okay.